My name is Patrick Lucas. I'm the founder of the Indigenous Youth mountain bike program, and I'm here with my good friend, Tom Eustache. Tom, give a big wave. You can all see him on your screen somewhere in the little squares. Tom and I have been working together for years, and we always like to see these kind of chats as sort of like Tom and I travel around the province together. We spend hours and days and weeks in a truck, and we always have these incredible conversations where we basically solve all the world's problems and then forget everything we said. But so we're kind of inviting you all into the truck, and we're going to have a really good discussion. And today we're with two really special guests I'm super excited about: Rachelle Van Zanten and Jordan Williams. Jordan's from the Lake Babine First Nation, and both Rachelle and Jordan are with Spirit North, which is a group, I'll let Rachelle tell you a bit more about it, but it's an amazing group that gets Indigenous youth out on the land doing outdoor recreation in the North. And so we're going to be talking today about, what's it take. Really what I'm interested in is how much success they've had working with Indigenous youth, working with Indigenous communities with and non-Indigenous folks in creating a space and creating opportunities to get Indigenous youth out on the land. Despite this, the moderate successes that we've had with the Indigenous Youth mountain bike program, in a lot of ways, we're just a trail building group that, really builds the platform upon which communities that we work with get their youth out on the land. And a lot of communities are approaching us and wanting to learn more about how to build those kind of relationships and create space in which Indigenous youth and Indigenous communities can get out on the land and reconnect with nature. So we're going to have a conversation around that today. The chat box is open. You can use it. So by all means, jump in there, throw questions in. I'll be watching it throughout the next hour and asking questions throughout this. I'm really hoping that this can get into a kind of a more of a discussion sort of format. So please, by all means. And before we really kick into it, I'd love to say, jump in the chat box and let us know where you're coming in from. On whose territory are you residing and playing? I'm calling in today from the Simpcw First Nation on Vancouver Island. I'm a guest on their lands, and I always like to get a sense of where everybody's coming in from. So please, by all means, jump in the chat box. Let us know where you're dialing in from. Before we launch into that, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. So today's webinar is being hosted by the Outdoor Recreation Council and our good friend Louise. Louise, if you want to wave to everybody. The ORC is a charitable organization with more than 60 organizational members spanning the entire spectrum of outdoor recreation user groups. The ORC works to promote and advocate for access to and responsible use of BC's outdoor for public recreation. They build bridges between different user groups and represent the broad interest of the organized outdoor recreation community to government. As part of that mandate, they develop educational resources, including webinars like today. And today's webinar is being sponsored and supported by the Real Estate Foundation of BC. So hands up and thank you to the Real Estate Foundation of BC. So with that, I'd like to introduce my co-host, my friend, my confidant, my sidekick, Tom Eustache. Tom, you want to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Tom Eustache. I'm from Simpcw and we're part of the Simpcw Nation. And yeah, I've lived here all my life and lived in the valley here and rode bikes and hunted and fished and did all kinds of stuff here. It's an amazing place to live. And yeah, thank you for everybody for joining us. Awesome.
Yeah, great. And just so you know, Tom is with the Simpcw First Nation. They're one of the Secwepemc communities in the interior and have been building some amazing trails over the last 8 years together in Simpcw. So if you're ever looking for a great place to ride, it's usually pretty good riding early in the spring, just northeast of Kamloops on Highway 5. So now I want to bring in our guests. So we have Rachelle Van Zanten and Jordan Williams. Jordan, if we could start with you, you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Howdy. My name is Jordan Williams. I live in Brunswick, BC with Lake Babine Nation. I reside on the Nanetigan territory. I work as a a career language teacher with the public school. I speak and teach. I speak my language fluently. I work with Spirit North alongside the great Rachelle Van Zanten and her husband Chris Paulson. I've been with them for a few years. We're doing biking, canoeing, skiing, snowshoeing as much as we can. I really enjoy it, and we like to play on the Wet'suwet'en First Nation territory up on Boer Mountain, as they're part of their land. That's me so far.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Jordan. And I just want to make sure I ask everyone who's just coming to the meeting, please mute yourself. We might be unmuting folks later to ask questions. We'll see how that goes. But for now, if you could just mute yourself, that'd be great. Thank you, Jordan. And just so you know, Jordan, we've actually worked in your community. Tom and I went up and we built some trail in Tachette, which is part of the Lake Babine First Nation. We had an absolute blast working there with the youth. Really hoping we can get back one of these days because we never actually got to finish that trail. So I hope to return.
It's a wicked place to be. There are a lot of nice natural trails there that the wildlife walk on. So it's a really nice place. So if anybody want to come check it out, you're more than welcome to.
That's a beautiful spot. Absolutely gorgeous. So Rachelle, turning it over to you. Want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Hadi, Rachelle Satney. I work alongside Jordan, and I live in Burns Lake on Wet'suwet'en unceded territory. I get to hang out in all these wonderful communities and Chesletta Carrier Nation, Skin Tai, Ni Taiban, Lake Babine Nation, Wet'suwet'en, and Silkazko. And I spend my days rolling and tumbling on the land with children and riding bikes and launching off of big rocks with cross-country skis and whatever else we've been lighting fires recently with flint and steel. And that's what I spend the majority of my day doing, rolling and tumbling with kids in the bush.
Nice. Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Rachelle. So just looking at the chat box here, I thought I'd draw attention to, we're getting people from all over here. We've got folks coming in. Alexa's here from the Shimshan territory in Torka North. Always good to see Alexa. We've got folks. So, hey, someone else calling in from Comox, Courtney, Emma. Nice to see you here. Of course, there's Curtis from Varda up in Valemount. Good to see you, buddy. We got Chanu. Awesome. Lots of folks here. Quequetlam Nation. Wonderful. So good to see so many different folks here. Tyler Jordan, our good friend from Seven Meshes here. Always good to see you, Tyler. Yeah, so yeah, keep throwing it in there. If you come on the chat, please jump in the chat box, throw in some comments. We love to see just good feedback or even just questions or anything else you want to share with us. Let's jump into the conversation. So what I'd love to start with is perhaps Jordan or Rachelle, maybe you can tell us a little bit about Spirit North. Like what is the organization? How did it start? How did you become involved with it? Why don't we start with Jordan? Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got involved with Spirit North?
I got involved with Spirit North a few years back with Rachelle as she was doing biking with our local youth. And I noticed that she was coming more and more, and she came up to me and asked me if I wanted to be a part of the team. I do a little bit of, I started biking probably about 5 years back again from my childhood. I used to bike a lot here. So I started biking again, and Rachelle and Chris came up and asked me if I wanted to be a part of the team and help coach the youth of our Six Nations. And I agreed, and I've never looked back. I enjoy working with the youth and Rachelle, Chris, biking, all the activities that we do. It's just amazing with this beautiful scenery, this beautiful playground that was built for us. Yeah, that's how I pretty much started, because that I didn't know much about Spirit North until Rachelle came into, and I met Rachelle, and yeah, I still enjoy it.
Awesome. Okay, thank you, Jordan. So maybe Rachelle, maybe you could tell us a little bit about Spirit North as an organization. Like, what is it you guys do? How did it all start? We'd love to know about it.
Well, the brainchild behind Spirit North is our national icon, Becky Scott. She started this program 6 years ago. She was touring, I believe, to a school, and I think she just really started to realize in her touring with her medals how there was a big difference in opportunity for Indigenous children versus non-Indigenous children as far as sport opportunity in particular. And so she 6 years ago started in Canmore, started on Treaty 6 and started expanding to central and northern Alberta, and running programs in communities, on reserves, schools, but she wrote grants, hundreds of hours she spent writing grants and finding her team so that she could purchase equipment, skis and boots for these communities, for the youth, for the leaders, and for their schools. And so Burns Lake, our team actually came on board back in 2018. And it was a big learning curve, but we started with Lake Babine Nation at Morris Williams Elementary, and we received a grant to purchase a fleet of skis and boots. And we brought it into the school, and that was our first winter ever. Just, my husband is obsessed with creating awesome ski trails. So he built a homemade groomer and just started grooming the reserve so that the elders could get out, and the community could actually access the bush in the wintertime if they didn't have snowmobile. Kids started skiing, and we spent almost every PE class skiing, and they became these phenomenal little shredders. And then the snow disappeared, and we're like, hey, what's next? And we happen to live in this most amazing part of BC with hundreds of, well, I'm exaggerating, but a really incredible world-class mountain biking right outside their door, but none of the children had ever been there before. And so we decided to fundraise, write grants, get a fleet of mountain bikes and helmets. We all got certified with PMBI, and we started to get our kids out the nation, out onto their territory, but on these mountain bike trails. And since then, it has grown to, like, our region has just grown into all these outlet communities, and providing bikes and helmets and coaches who are trained. And then we also are all of our sports are basically land-based or water-based. So we're connecting those kids and getting them out on the land, getting them confident, getting them to discover their grizzly, and having fun doing it. So archery, mountain biking, skiing, running, paddling, all of these sports that get these kids out on the land, that's what we focus on. And these programs run right from Prince Rupert all the way to Ontario, so Western Canada mainly. And we just had a big summit in Canmore, and I think there were probably over 45 leaders there. So it's really growing, and really growing fast, actually. Pretty exciting.
Wow. I mean, that's amazing. Like, so many, just so many amazing points there. And I think one of the things that really struck me is I've been cycling in Burns Lake for years, and I've been cycling all over BC for many years, and working with communities to help get and support Indigenous youth to get out on the land. And I think one moment that really struck me is, I think it was 2 years ago, I was driving up to Boer Mountain. It was raining, like really, really hard. And I passed 3 young kids that I can only assume they definitely looked like they were from the Lake Babine First Nation. And they were riding up on their own in the rain, on their bikes. I
I know who
can't,
they were.
like, that blew my mind away. I
Yeah.
cannot stress what a huge win that is.
Yeah.
And so this is what I want to ask you guys is, when you were first starting to talk to each other, first, like Spirit North, speaking to Lake Babine, how did you engage in that relationship? Like, so for example, Jordan, I'd love to ask you, like, when someone like Rachelle comes to you, or a community, somebody, a non-Indigenous person comes to a First Nation community, what is it that you'd like them to know, or how could they better prepare to engage, even start the conversation towards starting this kind of program?
Build a relationship. A relationship is really important to our community. Our community is really close. Our families are really close, and what we value is trust and getting to know people and talking and gaining their trust is what Rachelle did perfectly amazing with, and is what I hooked me was she was getting into the school and speaking with the students and gaining their trust too. And our community, like I said, it's a really close community and loving community. We like to engage with different people and making a relationship for activities like this, because when we gain that trust and relationship, it goes a long ways with the students, as they'll open up with biking and trusting us how to teach them, and it could go a lot farther than that with their life story, and it just doesn't stop there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jordan, for sharing that. I'm not at all surprised when you say focus on relationships, focus on building that trust. It's so important. And I think, Tom, I'd love to draw you in here, because I think one of the things I hear a lot from different clubs around the province that I get to speak to is they often talk about they want to engage. They want to know how to move forward. They often say, "Oh, we've sent some emails and we haven't got any response." And I understand that. And I mean, the one thing I keep saying to them is, like, you have to keep trying. But I'd love to hear from you, Tom, like what would you just say to a club that comes to you and says that we're trying to, what do we do? How can we build that trust? How can we get the conversation started?
Yeah, I think just showing up all the time and being there when you say you're going to be there. So like Jordan was saying, that we can trust what you're saying and what you want to do. And that's a big thing in our communities. Like Jordan was saying, we're all really close in our communities. Like I pretty much know every family in our community, so we're a really close community. So yeah, word gets around really quickly, and like, so they know what I'm doing and what Patrick's doing there, or whatever it happens to be. Curtis comes around, the people know. So I think showing up and being there when you say you're going to be there, and doing what you say you're going to do. Those are the two biggest things, because it creates that trust. And if you're there and you're consistent all the time, and yeah, people will trust you. Yeah.
Awesome.
And then you're not just if you're there enough, you turn out to be not an outsider. You come there, and you even when you come there, you feel welcome, right? And it feels like a place that you want to be. Yeah. So
Awesome.
Like I work with the public school, and a lot of Indigenous and non-Indigenous students, and I have been building a relationship with them for about 6 years now, teaching them language, teaching them our culture, and teaching them about our land, and just letting them know that we are from this land, and letting them know to trust people when they express and open up to them, to them. And like our families here in Lake Babine Nation, we a lot of them trust our they trust us to keep them safe, bring them home. And as with relationships that Rachelle, myself, and Chris built with these families, it's really important to have them know that their youth is safe and having fun.
Awesome. I think those are all amazing points. I think Rachelle, Rachelle, I'd love to get you in on this. So when you were starting out and you were looking to build that relationship, what would you say are some of the key lessons you learned, or maybe what did you wish you'd known when you started to do this?
Oh my gosh, the learning curve was huge. I had to have a security guard the first year. I came in with all my training. So for skiing, I had like my NCCP training, and I had so many hours of ski time and whatnot. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna make Olympians out of these kids. This is gonna be epic. And very quickly I learned that it was nothing about that. It was completely about relationship building, trust building. It was about coming in as a student, actually. So I learned that by coming in and to learn just as much as those children were going to do for me, that the experience was going to be much richer. So every day I just came in as like, okay, I've got equipment, I've got all these skills, but what are you going to teach me today? And the relationship grew way stronger and way quicker. And I agree with Jordan, like I didn't really know, I knew my colleagues, like I grew up with a lot of the Lake Babine moms and dads of the kids I'm teaching now. So I had those relationships, but it took probably a good 3 years. Now I know aunties, uncles, I have everyone in my phone. If someone goes down, I know who to call. I know grandmas, I know grandpas, I know, and it makes all the difference in the world. So when we have an event, we know who's coming and who needs a chair and who needs help and who needs snowshoes versus skis. And it just makes all the difference in the world. And that took at least 3 years. And it meant going to community events and having community engagements, going to funerals, going to celebrations, going to, we just celebrated Chief Medik as he passed. And it was just so emotional because for 5 years, he's been my guiding light for this program. And now I'm just like struggling, like, oh, I don't have this pillar anymore. And but definitely learning that, like we are not going to have a strong program until we put that time in and invest in the whole entire community. And now, and Chris and Jordan always catches me running the stop sign, and so will rat on me for running the stop sign, and we get the waves and it's just such a richer experience now that we have the community as part of us. And yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, in 3 years, I mean, that's pretty fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, how long did I show up in your community, Tom, before you actually started trusting me? I think 8 years. Was it just this year? I don't know. You're on mute, bud. You're on mute, Tom. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I was struggling with the button there. Yeah, I think it was just the end of this August I started trusting you a little bit. So yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
That's soon.
Yeah, Rachelle, it really helps to be from the area, right? And growing up with these people. That's a huge one, like growing up in a community and being around it. And it's and that's what we talked about, is going to events. If there's an event there, go to it, go check it out, go meet people there. That's how you yeah, that's how you get to know people. And as you get more intimate, like you said, you end up going to funerals, you end up going to celebrations, all of the things. You start living the life of and finding out who these people in the community are. And it's yeah, it's really hard to explain to unless you're there and you're in the community. It's something. Yeah.
Yeah, when you start to get the wave.
Yeah.
really.
I'm always after Patrick for that. Hey, you got to wave, man. You can't be just driving up the road and
Driving around
all
there,
some astute. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's like you could do a study, an anthropological study on how different communities wave. Like some communities get just the two fingers. Other communities you get the crossover. If you're on the coast, it's like this weird queen waving thing. Oh yeah, you get the salute. Like you figure that out, you're well on your way.
I think with
Okay.
ours, it's the rock claw into the glass. The rock claw.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah, I'm telling you, every community has its wave. You got to figure it out. And it was Tom who would always be on my case about that. Every community went to. Okay, so looking into the chat box really quickly here, we got folks from all over, and I'll definitely be plugging the jerseys later. Thank you, Curtis, for reminding me about that. Yeah, and if you guys have questions, if you have comments, please throw them in there. I'm going to be watching this. I'll start asking your questions. Maybe we'll have some folks jump in on their microphones, for sure. So carrying on here. So I think I really wanted to kind of dive into, working with Indigenous youth. So you've built this relationship, and I think you guys have made some great points, like go to events. If you're trying to engage with a local First Nation, you don't have those connections, and like me, you haven't lived in the area for a long time. If there's an Indigenous Peoples Day, go to their events, go to their gallery, go just spend time there, show up, put in that FaceTime, and it can make a huge difference. And that can go a long ways.
Bring food.
Bring food. Yeah, absolutely. Bring food. That's a great point. Yeah. But what I want to do now is let's dive a little bit into, working with Indigenous youth, working with the kids. Like I know building trail with a lot of the kids, it can be pretty tough coming as an outsider into a community and building that trust. And I'd love to hear from you guys. Like George, all three of you have worked a lot with youth along with myself. So I'd really like to hear what you think. What is some of the key lessons that you'd like to impart or let people know about what to be thinking about when you're working with Indigenous youth and you're helping them get out on the land, you're helping them get on a bike for the first time, you're helping them get on skis. How do you build that trust? What are some of the key lessons that you think people should know about? How about Jordan? You want to go first?
Get personal. Like put your feelings into it. Getting feelings into it is something that they could feel in their body, in their head, in their hearts. As our Indigenous youth have ancestors that can feel energy, positive energy, negative energy, nervous energy. They all have this feeling that that they can where and when they could trust, where and when they could talk, is how you speak to them, how you walk up to them, how you are looking at them or speaking to them. It's that little vibe that they can pick up. As myself, I feel like I pick up positive energies, and I bring out the positive energy into the youth too, and they start coming in and start getting personal with you. That's a really rare thing with a lot of these youth, is it's hard to get them to open up and trust. And like when they start trusting you, the bike, with how safe they are. They'll start talking and start letting you know how they feel. If they're feeling good, they'll let you know. If they're feeling bad, they'll let you know. And something that I could see our youth can feel with anybody and everybody, but then like having connections with relationship with the parents, the aunts, the uncles, basically the family. It would be just having that positive vibe that people have and spread it with them. That's pretty much that I wanted to say. Is I spent a lot of time with my youth, and I could feel a lot of happiness, a lot of weary, a lot of sadness, a lot of anger, and I try to empathize with them, and when they start trusting me, they could pretty much say anything to you. But I'm always letting them know, is like, are you ready to open up to me? And they do. It's hard sometimes to get an Aboriginal youth to open up with generational trauma and any kind of trauma that has been going on, or even just daily troubles. And when you get them to open up, it makes a lot of difference to them, as you want them safe, and they want them safe, and their parents. So that's all I could throw in there.
That's so powerful. Thank you, Jordan. You know, there's so many good tips in there, and I think like that's one of the key things I learned is working with the youth and just being really open and honest with them. You know, and they come from very tight-knit communities. You know, it takes time to build that trust. Rachelle, like, I mean, you've been doing this for a few years now. What lessons can you share with us?
I have, especially with biking, I've learned a lot of really cool things. The biggest one that I love watching my hubby Chris, he coaches as well, and he does it all. So he does it so well, is you kind of have like the peripheral view. So sometimes we have huge groups of 30 some kids. Sometimes we have small groups, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but you're always coming in with the peripheral view. So you can see all around you. And as a coach, you need to be really good at adjusting. So you have your high performance potentials. You have the kids that can barely balance on their bikes. You have the kids that can't balance on their bikes. So you set them all up for success really subtly. So Chris got all these bikes from the dump, and he took out the pedals. He took out the pedals and made them into run bikes. And so they're all different sizes. There's adult bikes right down to little kid bikes. And it opened up our experience, because suddenly these kids that have never ridden before in their lives, they're in grade 12 and they're riding with their peer group, cruising along, coasting. And it isn't long before they're on a pedal bike. So I've just found that over these 5 years is that being a good coach is you get really good at setting every child up for success, even if it means that they are in charge of being the team manager for the day. So they are our line leader, or they are our gear leader, or they're in charge of delegating helmets, helping clean stuff. If they're, for example, if they're just not into riding that day, they still are included. And then our hot shots, we have some riders that have been supported. So they've been riding their whole lives. And so we set them up for leadership, and they are put right into a leadership role where they are in charge of forming the groups, starting the warm up, getting the first game happenings before we split into our trail groups. So we just kind of like try to set every child up so they feel special. They feel like they've been noticed. and they belong. And that's been huge. So we have some of these kids that have never ever had a bike in their life are now just rocking our after school program and keeping up with the big kids, just because we took the time to figure out what they needed to get started and then keep going. And so that's been huge for me. And Chris has been going out to the outlet communities and bringing all these different adaptive bikes and whatnot. And just, it's been awesome. Like we see these, I call it the post pedal glow. They pedal for the first time and it's just like, they walk out of there and they are on cloud 9 and they're glowing and they have their chest puffed out and they are grizzly, and it's so rewarding. So that's, you know, that's the ultimate goal, is just to set every child up for that victory.
Nice. I love that. You keep mentioning they're grizzly, and I think we're gonna have to get a little bit more, like, you're gonna have to tell us a little bit more about that in a moment, you know. But I really wanted to draw Tom in, because Tom, like, you've had like periods of time where you've had kids out riding consistently, and then you've had times where it kind of goes into a bit of a lull. So you've had some success and some challenges with getting kids out consistently riding and using the trails. How do you think what's made it successful, and where have you found the challenges?
For us in our community, the challenges are there's so much for them to do, and their parents are already engaged in doing stuff with them. Like they snowboard, they play baseball, they play soccer. That was my challenges, finding that hour in a day or whatever it was, that time in the day where they would have time to come and do stuff, or even want to come and do it if they just got off soccer. You know, sometimes some of them wouldn't, but the real keen ones they'd come anytime. Oh yeah, whatever day you want to go. And there'd be a few of them. So just for me, it would just keep going with those few kids that wanted to do it, no matter how many, if it was 1 or 2 or there was 10, there was, you know. And later on, like we've been doing it for a while, and now I see some of the older kids that I started out with riding, that sort of it went to the wayside with them. They started doing other things. They're back to riding again. Like there's a couple that are adults now that are doing it as an adult, like went out and got their own bikes and stuff, and they go out with their friends and ride. And yeah, so it does come around. It's not always, I think, just being patient all the time and just being there and keep asking, and keep asking the parents if they want to come out. And and like I was saying, they're always so busy there doing other things. So I think winter time is a sort of a lull for some people. Like quite a few of the kids snowboard, but there's a group of them that don't, that either can't afford to go. It's about an hour drive from here to Sun Peak, so you know, for fuel for a vehicle to get up there. So I think there's a group that I could target in the winter. So I was just talking with Patrick about looking at getting a groomer and grooming some trails, and whether it was, I was just talking to the guy at the school and just saying, hey, let's get them out cross country skiing if we can, and maybe we'll get that groomer and we can get a few fat bikes and they can get out riding, because we have a lot of area that we could groom trails on and do that. So just starting there, I think just keep trying different things all the time, and I guess it goes back to that being consistent and being there all the time, and showing them that you want to do stuff with them and gaining their trust. I just seen one of the kids that did ride with me, and we all say hi to they come out once in a while and ride, but they're getting into their teens now, so they're into doing other things. But I always see them. Her mom always says hi, and they all say hi and ask what we're up to and what we're doing. We have a little chat in the store or wherever it happens to be. But yeah, I think you just got to create that trust. Yeah.
Jordan,
And
it looked like
that's-
you wanted to jump in there. Did you want to add something in?
No, that was
Okay.
Patrick, I had something to say, like,
Sure, please.
Just to add to Tom's conversation there. Like, I find that the kids are busy, especially we're a big hockey town, so in the winter a lot of kids are playing hockey. But then the kids that do show up for our after school program are the ones, like we might even get 2 or 3, but they're the ones that have zero opportunity for other sports programs, and those are the ones that, you know, they show, and that's what matters. There's these Jordan knows who I'm talking about. There's maybe 2 or 3 boys that basically, I call them self-raisers, because they're just so old soul. They're like, I think 8, 9 years old, but they pretty much own the street, and they come up, and this is Spirit North program is the only thing they have, and they will show up faithfully and bike or ski or whatever. And that's, for us, that's what it comes down to, is that that's what we're just hoping for, right? Because that creating opportunity for those that have no opportunity.
Brilliant. Really good points. So what I'd like to do now is we're getting into the last quarter of the hour here, and there was one question in the chat box I wanted to jump to. So this is from Bree Thorlickson. I hope I'm saying your name right, Bree, from Porca, which I think is Pemberton Off-Road Cycling Association. Not a great acronym, guys, gotta tell you. And she asked, there's a lot of resources for Indigenous intercultural awareness training that associations can access for their board members and their employees and their volunteers. And so her question is to the panel: would you recommend organizations do that as a first step in order to start engaging with local First Nations? Should they engage in that type of intercultural awareness training that is out there? So, I always think of folks like Bob Joseph, absolutely brilliant man and consultant here in the Lower Mainland. Would you recommend that as a first step? And if so, are there any specific trainings that you would recommend? So why don't we start off with Shell? I'd love to start off with you. Like, when you mentioned you went in with your trainings, and I'm assuming you meant like your skiing, your mountain biking. Did you have cultural awareness training that you accessed? And is that something that you would recommend?
That's an awesome question. And I didn't. Like, all my best friends are Simpcw, Lake Babine Nation. So in that sense, they feed me a lot. But with Spirit North, we have done a lot of that training at our leader summits, and it has been huge. So the blanket exercise, that was truly a life-changing thing to do. And then we had a bunch of guest speakers at our last summit that just really talked about coaching through a non-colonial lens, which was huge. And we went through a lot of training on traditional games, on what else do we do? And I think but the biggest thing was, I think, like, having Jordan as our teammate and really learning about the culture within the community. So protocol. I think I was the worst person in the world one day when the flags were up on the hall. Someone had just brought their family member, the body, into the hall, and I didn't even know that on those days there's no singing, there's no music, there's no big joyous play. And I came ripping in there with my music blaring, and hey everybody, we're gonna have a great day. And it was horrible, and everyone just looks at me, oh, neato white girl. And so I definitely I think that as much training as you can do before coaching, and community specific, is key. So if you can get into that would be an ideal first step before the steep learning curve happens.
Yeah. And I think you hit on something really important there. I do think, like, I wish in a lot of ways I'd had access to that type of training when I first started doing this. Like, I've been involved in this space for 15 years, and it probably would have saved me a lot of mistakes. But at the end of the day, if any good training helps you, it helps you get ready to go and just do, work with specific communities, because every place is very different. Well, how about you, Jordan? What do you think? Would you recommend that kind of a step? Is that type of training, like, do you think it has value? Is that something you would recommend to folks here in the webinar?
It is valuable to cultural awareness. And part of our tradition is to let people know what kind of people we are about, what kind of protocols that we follow. And it's important for everybody and anybody to know what kind of guidelines that need to be followed with the land, with the people, with the spirit, with the spirit of the people. And when we like Rachelle said, there's protocols that are out there that should be taught, that should be known. It's just basic knowledge for non-Aboriginals, as everybody should know. Is when there's a lost loved one in the community, there's no music, there's no play in the community for the respect of the grieving families, for the grieving clans. And having somebody to knows a part of their culture, a part of their tradition would be beneficial for a lot of leaders that are non-Indigenous. It'll come a long ways to gain trust with parents, with community leaders like chief and council, students, like any family members. It would really be beneficial for those that you want to be welcomed into the community. Because if you don't really know the awareness of the culture and traditions of a territory, then it'll be really hard for you to gain trust with the people that are actually running the community. And the parents, as there are a lot of people that are very cultural, very traditional, and if that trust is broken, then it'll be very hard to even try to start building.
Wow, thank you. I think, and I would say from my own perspective, as I mentioned, I wish a lot of those resources had been available when I first started doing this. I think it can have a lot of value, and I think the most important thing is to understand that it's preparing you to learn further, right? Like it's not you're not learning to check off boxes. You're not learning something that works for every community. You're basically kind of figuring out how to navigate and deal with questions as they come up. A lot of clubs approach me, and they'll often say, one of the first things they say to me is, I'm afraid of making a mistake. And this is something I'd love to have all three of you comment on. They always say, I'm afraid of making a mistake. I'm afraid of causing offense. And usually what I say is, you will. You will. This is human relations. Please, Jordan.
There are no stupid questions at all. Because we First Nation, our nation knows that there are a lot of cultural and tradition that aren't taught, and we don't how do you say that again? Won't believe that against you, as people don't know. And ask questions to everybody and anybody. Don't be afraid to ask, because little questions like, are there any protocols that we should be following in this community that would get people angry or upset, or it would benefit us, or in those kind of questions it would go a long ways. Is ask any kind of questions and talk to anybody that is into biking, into skiing, that's engaged with youth, that's culturally mindful. Is it's really good. It'd be really good for anybody to know. Is if you've met somebody that is really into their culture, friend them, talk to them, invite them. And as the friendship goes, friendship building would go, it ask questions on what kind of protocols the community has. It like I said, it's really beneficial for everybody.
Awesome. Thank you, Jordan. I think so many good points. It really comes down to, asking questions. I've always found of all the nations I've ever worked with, and Tom knows this, people have always been willing to share that knowledge. And really what it comes down to, and what I say to clubs is, things will happen. You'll cause offense. You'll make mistakes. That's not the problem. The problem is being willing to be open and to learn and to ask questions and do better. So I just really want to throw it out to folks. We're coming down to the last few minutes of the webinar. Please throw out some questions on here. You've got three amazing individuals with an unbelievable wealth of knowledge. I want to make sure we get as many questions as we can. And so, Tom, to you, when I first came to you, are you wishing I had training?
Well, to be fair, at that time I was just starting into trail building and riding my bike a lot at that time. So I was sort of thirsty for some knowledge myself of doing, how to proceed with doing some of this stuff. So I was looking for someone, to do that. But yeah, it was a bit awkward actually. And now I think back to it, because you didn't know what you were doing, or how to approach people, or how to talk to people. I think a big thing is being humble, coming in, trying to listen to people instead of coming in and talking over people, maybe, or enforcing your ideas. I'm not saying that you, Patrick, but just that way. I think with us, I think it was sort of different because we didn't, like I said, we started out with mountain biking, and mountain biking's a universal language almost. If people are into doing that, I think we started out doing that way, and it was a fluke maybe that you just came in and that's what we started out with. So that's a relationship where we started, and we went from there. So I think that's a key thing, is going in there and finding who, people want to snowboard, or they want to ski, or they want to, do something like that. Some of our best allies in the valley do that. One of the heli skiing companies up there would bring our kids heli skiing. So, that's a huge thing to come in and say, hey, we're going to bring you guys out and do this. So the kids, go out and do that, and go up to Valemount and go ride bikes up there. So, I think, I think we just you have to find common ground somewhere. That's a huge one, having to find that common ground. Yeah.
So important,
Yeah, I think back to when we did that. That's how we met, was truly, we took a drive up the valley. And we took a drive up the valley. So we got to sit and talk in a vehicle and ride up. I got to know who you were, and I got to show you our valley, and where different things were at, and we got to know each other a little bit there. So, and those things don't always happen that way. But if you can set that up, you can meet someone there that you can that can guide you and show you their territory and what some of it's all about. That's a start. And sit and listen. Really sit and listen and what they're having to say instead of thinking of how you could best take advantage of it. I think listening and doing that, I think is a huge step forward. So.
I think that's really what it comes down to, like when I first came and met with you, Tom, like I'd already been doing this for quite a while and kind of had been broken down a little bit and was starting to get out of that arrogant shell where I thought I knew what was best. And the one thing I would recommend to everybody here, if you have a chance, if you can walk with an elder out on the land and just listen and just hear the stories and create that space where they're showing you and they're sharing things with you, it can be so profoundly powerful and transformative. It really can be, and I think that's where Tom and I really started to become friends and really start to figure each other out and how to work together. So there's one last great question. I want to ask this question. This is a perfect thing to wrap it up on. And this is a bit different. So this is from Sawyer. Is it Yonker? Awesome. I got it. Sawyer Yonker. And he asked, what are some guiding best practices or what's, a way that you can work or engage with Indigenous youth in recreation who have been displaced from their communities. And I'm suspecting that has to do with, if you're working in, an urban area and you're working with kids who aren't strongly connected to their community, so they might not have that space where they're getting lots of great mentorship and cultural learning. And this could happen in Lake Babine too. Rachelle, you could be working with some of the kids who are living in Burns Lake who might not have really strong connections to their community. So how can you engage with them as a non-Indigenous person, I'm assuming? I think that's an interesting question. So how can you work with youth to help use recreation to help them reconnect with their culture and their sense of place? Well, you know what, Tom, I'm going to start with you on this one. What would you say to someone asking that question? How do you use recreation to help kids reconnect with their culture and their sense of place?
I think finding out where they're from, and maybe if they don't know where they're from, and going on that little journey with them first and finding out which community they're from and what part of the province or what part of Canada maybe they're from, and going from there. And then just building that trust through that, and then going on to doing whatever it happens to be, whatever sports they're interested in. I think there's so many different things that kids like to do. So, or if they have nothing to do, it's surprising the things that they will try. Like Rachelle was saying, some of the kids going out and they'll come out and do anything. They'll come out and go skiing. They'll come out and go mountain biking, walking, hiking, whatever it is, right? So, yeah, I think that's really what you need to do is just find out where they're from and go from there and make that connection. And it makes you have a connection too with that community, so you find out some knowledge too. Yeah.
Nice.
I agree. I think before trying to start a program or saving the situation, I think actually getting to know who these individuals are, and if they're not into mountain biking, there's you're not going to go there, but just actually once you get to know them, maybe there is an opportunity if you are a coach or you have some sort of group that can maybe take these kids out onto the land. And even simple hikes, fires are so powerful. So having a fire where people can gather, you just love fire, and having hot chocolate in a fire is so wonderful. And the kids get to talk, and you get to meet them, and you do it out on their territory. Or, whatever, where if their territory is far away, then whatever you have access to, but keep it simple. And then once you get to know them, you can start putting effort maybe into skiing or biking, or and then also I think too, just make sure that you are aware of who their potential elder. We're always making sure that the elders are involved. their parents or whoever their support is. So making sure that you have guidance from the elders as to what would potentially be a good plan for with these youth.
Awesome. Okay. And so Jordan, I'm going to get you to give your final thoughts here, but before I set you loose there on this topic, I want to ask everybody who's still on the webinar, if you can, let's do a really rapid fire round in the chat. If there's one thing you'd like us to do a webinar in the future, some topic, some issue, some burning question that you have, throw it in there right now. Let me know, because we are going to be planning more of these webinars. We want to keep doing this. We want to keep the discussion going. And so passing it to you, Jordan, how can we use recreation? How can we use this space to help Indigenous youth who may have been, displaced from their community or not have a strong connection? How can we use recreation to help them out?
Bring them to the lake. Bring them camping. If you have a hunting background, bring them all hunting. As most Aboriginals, most Indigenous people are hunters, are from the land, and that's where we're comfortable. That's where we feel safe, and that's where our spirits feel like that we are at ease, where we can get grounded, as we don't feel that in the city or town or in a house. We know that the land is a part of us, part of the creator, what the creator has put upon us, and it would gain trust, it would gain confidence into people, as they are Aboriginal. They know where they're from. They know what kind of people they are, and we are land-based people. We do love the land, the nature, as we calm down as we sit in the bush, berry picking, hunting, camping, on a boat, on a canoe, fishing. It's something that we always felt like that we could put our mind at ease, put our heart at ease, put our spirit at ease, as this world has been rattled in the past couple of years. We do go out and feel like that we have that land to bring us back to earth, bring us back to the place that we come from, and it eases our heart. It makes us happy, and for the youth, it would do such an amazing job on how comfortable they would be, how trusting they would be, and they would open up. They would open up their hearts, they would open up their souls, they'd open up their spirits, and let you know how they feel and how trusting that they'll be with you. It's something that I grew up with. The land base, the youth recreation that we used to do is to swim, to go fishing, hunting. As growing up, as the place that I grew up was here in Burns Lake, this very mountain here. There was no trails when I was growing up. There was just one big road. Me and my friends used to go up in the hill, right up to Boer Mountain, right on top, mountain bike, BMX, all the way up. And we sit there and talk, or sit there and just listen. And then we'd race down with no safety net, no any of those kind of stuff that we play on right now, like the trails that are so safe, and other than the sketchy road that goes down. But for those children that are in the urban places. Yes, bring them to the land. Let them know that just that's it. It'll help them.
Awesome. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you. I think that really says it all. Get the kids out on the land and the rest will take care of itself. I think that's so powerful. So that's all the time we have for today. Tom, do you have any parting thoughts or comments you'd like to make?
I'd just like to thank everyone for coming on here. That's all. That's good to see so many people from all over the place. And hopefully there was some good information that we put out there. And it always seems like it, when I look at the time, I always think, wow, that's a long time to be talking, but then it goes by so fast. It just, yeah, it seems like we don't have enough time to talk more about it, I think. Yeah. So yeah, thank everyone for coming on and some good questions, and yeah, hopefully we had some good answers. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom. And there's some great questions here for future webinars, some great stuff here. How can we create and build avenues for Indigenous youth to move into careers and leadership roles in the recreation industry? Yeah, that's a whole other topic I'd love to dive into. How can organizations provide recreational opportunities for and communities that may be missing connection and resources locally? How is the mountain bike industry addressing responsible recreation and reconciliation? Yeah, there's a hot take. Yeah, that's from Alexa, of course. And that's a good question for the whole recreation industry. Many small communities would like to build mountain bike trails, hiking trails to attract tourists. How can they include Indigenous communities in the planning development process? That's a huge piece. For anybody here, you just if you want to reach out through the Outdoor Recreation Council or through to our website, the Indigenous Youth Mountain Bike Program. Tom and I often will do sessions like this, diving into some of these issues. We are going to be doing some more webinars in the new year. I'm hoping to do one on demystifying land back, which should be really interesting. So keep an eye out. I threw in the chat box there the IYMPP, so the Indigenous Youth Mountain Bike Program. We are doing a fundraiser. We're selling some amazing t-shirts that were made for us by 7 Mesh Apparel. Curtis, I think you got yours. You were pretty happy with it, right? Yeah, score. So go on to our website, Indigenous Youth Mountain Bike Program, and check it out. They're selling out quick, so make sure you get yours today. Rachelle, any final thoughts or comments before we sign off?
Well, I just thought it'd be kind of neat to read our 3 calls to action that we kind of focus Spirit North focuses on for how, like, with our program. And it won't take long. I just wanted to quickly read these off.
Please do.
They just kind of help me stay focused on the reason what we're doing. And so number 19, we help close the gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities by promoting the physical and mental health benefits of sport and play. Number 89, we elevate sport and play as a fundamental part of our health and well-being, and we support active communities through local events and dedicated programming. So basically we show up. Number 90, the last one, we collaborate with schools and communities to create programs that reflect local needs and invest in resources, training, certification, and mentorship to ensure these benefits last for generations to come. So that kind of just, they're good goals to stick to when designing programs for communities. Yeah.
Very powerful. All right. Thanks, everyone. Kukstem, everyone, for coming out. Gela Kessler. Like I said, keep an eye out. We're going to be doing some more webinars in the future. Feel free to reach out. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Curtis, it was good to see you, man. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you again in the new year. Take care, everyone.
Yeah, Ms. Rachel.
Have a great night, guys. Thank you. We'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Norwegian.
Norwegian.